We have with us today Tony Katz, a talk show radio host, and Richard Fowler, a Fox News contributor. Tony, I'll start with you. What do you think about what we've seen so far? It seems like the protests are fairly peaceful. They're actually not very well attended, it seems, in some of these hotspot areas. The fears of major protests across the country getting violent or having problems seem to be, unfounded so far.
In Los Angeles, we saw a level of violence, and let's be perfectly clear that when you see people protesting in front of the homes of Supreme Court justices, those addresses being leaked, that is the act of violence. The whole purpose of this leak is the attempt at intimidation. The leak is the story. Of course, there's something to be said about whether or not the court indeed overturns Roe v. Wade, and we won't know that till the end of June or the beginning of July. This was a first draft that got leaked. The leak is a disgrace, is the best way to describe it. And the absolute silence, I know you played Senator Chris Murphy right there, but the silence from President Biden, the seemingly being okay with it from Jen Psaki, and the rest of the Democratic apparatchik is absolutely despicable. And that's what America's reacting to.
Richard, shouldn't homes of Supreme Court justices or politicians be off limits?
Listen, Rich, thanks for having me, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers watching this evening, including my own. I agree with you. Yes, absolutely. There's no reason for you to go in front of a Supreme Court justice's house and protest based on a decision that we don't know if it's actually true yet, even though the court has confirmed that this is an authentic draft. With that being said, talking about the leak is the easy way out of this argument. The hard way out is to actually have a conversation about what was in that 60-page document. In that document, what you saw Justice Alito do there is say that women aren't as equal of citizens as men are, because as a man, I control all my body. There isn't the government in the doctor's office with me when I go to the doctor's office. And the argument that you hear from Republicans, that you've heard over and over again on Sunday shows, even on our own, was this is about giving the rights to the people. And if that was true, then I would hope that Republicans would stand up and pass the Voting Rights Act so that every American actually had a say in a woman's right to choose in reproductive health. But unfortunately, they're not.
Tony, Republicans...
That's simply not true.
Tony, Republicans
Wait a second.
Just let's get to this point here. Republicans have been saying now that the issue is that this is a politicization of the court. But you look at what happened 6 years ago. Senator Mitch McConnell said that President Obama wasn't going to have his Supreme Court nominee heard by the court, and that it would go to the people, that an open Supreme Court decision or open Supreme Court seat would be selected by the people in the 2016 election. Hasn't the court been politicized for years now?
The court has, you can argue, politicized when we talk about the Obamacare decision as well. You can make the argument if you choose, but we should be clear that Roe v. Wade was a politicized decision at the time. And the idea that somehow rights are being taken away from people when all Roe v. Wade does, the overturning of it, if it happens, is bring it back to the states. And of course, people would get to vote in their states. And sometimes you lose votes, so you keep on fighting for what you believe to be your rights. But remember, there is a woman on the Supreme Court who seemingly is voting to overturn Roe v. Wade, eliminating the argument that Richard is making there. And there are plenty of women, millions of women all across America who believe in the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So this argument that somehow it's an attack on women falls horrifically flat.
Richard, I want to get to the point about what Democrats can do here and what their next step is. This is Governor Gavin Newsom of California just earlier this week.
This is a concerted, coordinated effort. And yes, they're winning. Where the hell's my party? Where's the Democratic Party? You guys paying attention to what's going on?
So, Richard, have Democrats been asleep here politically? And what more can they do?
I think that's a great question, Rich. And let's be honest, let's be clear-eyed and realistic about this. I think at this point in time, the ideal of Senator Chuck Schumer, the majority leader, passing a law to sort of codify Roe v. Wade in the Senate is probably highly unlikely. With that being said, in many states across this country, there are trigger laws in place, which means as soon as this decision is rendered by the courts, if this is the decision of the courts, immediately abortion will be legal in a number of states, red states and blue states alike, including a state like Michigan. Now, we have to have a conversation in this country. What the courts has always done, whether it's been popular or unpopular, is the courts has widened who is American, who is allowed to be part of the institution. When they passed the Brown versus Board decision, they said black children can go to schools with white children. When they passed the Levy versus decision, they said that biracial couples could get married. Over and over again, the courts have stood on the side of opening the gates and making America a more fair country. If they rule to overturn Roe v. Wade, they're going in the opposite direction. Whether or not you agree with abortion, it's about whether or not a woman has full autonomy over her body when she's in the room with her doctor.
Tony, what do Republicans do next here? Do you think that Republicans, if they do take control of the Senate and eventually take control again of the White House and the House, that they should begin to legislate on abortion? Do they go further than the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
I would argue that right now what they do is nothing. See what the Democrats do. In states, they're trying to figure out whether they're going to call special sessions and things like that. But when you have Chuck Schumer saying we're going to call the vote, and we're going to call the vote on the idea of being of codifying the idea of partial birth abortion, man, you let the Democratic Party just beat itself up once again. They always overplay their hand, and they're absolutely doing it in this case.
Nobody is calling for the ban of a partial birth abortion. We're codifying a woman's privacy when she's in the room.
You got to read the
doctor.
Legislation, Richard. I mean, the legislation.
I've read the legislation.
Is
I've also read the decision.
Richard, what about that? Are Democrats going too far? And is there a compromise? Should they be reaching out to the more conservative or the more centrist Republicans here to try to find a pathway forward on abortion legislation?
The question of whether or not Democrats are going too far is also based on the question of whether or not Republicans are going too far. In many states across this country, Republicans are passing laws that eliminate the exemptions for rape, for incest, for the health of the mother. Over and over again, we've seen Republicans step too far when it comes to a woman's privacy when she's in the room with her doctor, even if it concerns her health, or even if it concerns morality. So now the question on whether or not Democrats go too far is based on the fact that the Democrats will be passing a law that would make it easier for women to have access to reproductive care in states that are saying, if you get raped, if there's a case of incest, if your health is on the line, you don't have access to reproductive health.
All right, guys, we have to leave it there. Fellas, I'm sorry, I got to run. Thank you very much. Tony Katz, Richard Fowler, very much appreciated.
Good to see you, Rich.
Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
And to you guys, all the women out there as well, all the mothers out there as well.